Welcome to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. This is the show that will inspire you to uncover your formula for success so you take charge of your story, overcome life's obstacles, and find fulfillment in all branches of life. With Johnny as your guide, you will break down the science of success and experiment with how you can combine key elements to uncover discipline you need to accelerate your journey towards prosperity. Now, on to today's episode.
Hello and welcome to the Elements of Success with Johnny Dawson. Johnny, how are you this morning?
Good, Eric. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. I know that you have a special guest on the show today. He's with us right now. I want you to introduce the guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Today on our show, we've got Shawn Bailey, who's the founder and president of Next Basketball, and kind of a unique story on Shawn and I have met. And it's really, I guess, not that unique because a lot of people meet in this fashion, but we met through church. In fact, Shawn was actually someone that kind of I aspired to be. I don't think he knew that at the time. My wife and I had some young children and I always thought Shawn was a strong Christian and a man of faith and a great father figure. And he was a few older than me, a few years older than I was. And I always tried to gravitate towards people that I felt were great community leaders, but also role models as a father myself. And now today, Shawn is currently co-founder and president of Next Basketball. And it's easy to see Shawn's love and devotion, and you're going to hear a lot about that, towards the game of basketball. And Next is really designed as a nonprofit to develop young people for the next phase of their lives through the game of basketball, to create future leaders through the community involvement and just to aspire to be better than themselves that they are today. So with that, Shawn, welcome to the show. It's a privilege and an honor to have you on.
Thank you so much. I actually don't think I should say anything else after that introduction. I think I can only just hurt myself going forward. But thank you. Thank you for the very, very kind words. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Shawn, when I'd ask you specifically, which element do you think you would want to speak about or to help others, you immediately responded with hope and faith. And I kind of knew that just knowing you as a person, I said, there's going to be some element of faith associated with what Shawn's going to talk about. And it's very fitting from what I know about you as a person and a mentor. But let me ask you, why did you specifically pick those two topics to talk about?
Well, if you let me, before I even get to that, I think it's important to really put really great context in this conversation. You said we met at church, but I think it's vitally important that people understand how we met at church, really met at church. When my sons, I have 5 boys and a daughter, but when my 2 youngest sons, when they were in kindergarten and first grade, were playing in the Cypress Basketball League at the church, and Ken Murphy, our pastor there, asked me to lead it in my second year of doing it. I said, I had no problem doing that. And I remember one Saturday we were playing, the gym was packed. It was actually the old sanctuary, but now it's the gym. It was packed and I was coaching. And if anybody knows anything about me, incredibly competitive, gotten a lot better in that area. That day I was struggling. It was important to win. When I look back at that, I'm actually even embarrassed to say that I was worried about winning a game with first and second graders and kindergartners in your church league. And I remember that my attitude was not good towards one of the refs, which these are all voluntary people. And I remember it was halftime. We take our teams out in the foyer, and here comes this guy that I kind of knew but didn't know, but very intimidating. Had this big tattoo on his calf. He did not look like anybody you want to mess around with, and he made a beeline for me. And it was without doubt, Johnny Dawson was coming to engage. That's a really good word there. Engage with Shawn Bailey. And he said, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And it wasn't really a question. It was a statement. And so we talked. He said, hey, the bottom line is, you have to be better than where you are right now. You are the leader of this and people are watching you. Whatever you have to do going forward, you have to get better. That was really important that Johnny said that to me. I didn't take it. I didn't argue with him. I didn't leave the church that day thinking he was a jerk. Really, it was important that he did that. That's what leaders actually do. And if you know anything about Johnny's background, you know that he's a leader, and especially from a military standpoint, there is no room for being irresponsible as a leader. But what people really need to know is a lot of times they hear that I'm a Christian or someone's a Christian, has a faith in Jesus Christ. They immediately think that they have to be perfect. We are not, and no one is. And Absolutely. Even though Johnny had that conversation with me that day, I didn't change immediately. He just planted the seed. You fast forward when I started Next in its second year, we have a tournament game out at New Albany. I get thrown out of the game in the very first 3 minutes. I made a smart aleck comment and I got a technical, but my assistant coach made another comment and he just threw us both out. Here's all these people there. I'm running this organization. I got thrown out and I felt horrible. I sit next to John Lowe from Jenny's Ice Cream and he said, Shawn, he said it very quietly and just matter of factly. He said, hey, I saw the whole thing. It didn't warrant what happened to you. He goes, but I will say this, you got to get better. Mm-hmm. So there's a second time. So Johnny planted the seed. Now it's getting watered. Fast forward 24, 48 hours after that, Sam Johnson's father, if you don't know who Sam Johnson is, an all-state basketball player at Worthington Christian this year as a freshman. His father, Ralph Johnson, sent me an email, and I still have it to this day, where he challenged and chastised me for my behavior and what this looks like to young kids and even the parents that entrusted their kids to you. So there was the third time. And Johnny started it, Ralph ended it, and I've been much, much, much better since then. But my point is that if you're going to be a leader, you're going to have to be able to take challenges from other people, constructive criticism, because I don't think you can be the best version of yourself if you don't. I know I took a long time to get around that. You said hope and faith. The bottom line is for me, I don't know how you live without either one of them. I could not get out of my way for about 13 years of my life. And even though I gave my life to Christ when I was in college, I was nothing reminiscent of a Christian at all. I don't think you would have ever confused me with someone who's a Christian. Johnny says, I'm a great family man. I appreciate that. I'm trying to be now, but I was divorced twice. You had 3 kids and divorced twice. Now I have 6. So that to me is not a great family man. I struggled mightily with the decisions I made and I paid for them dearly. And so did everybody else in my life. I think that's very important. Consequences are very far reaching with our decisions. But I just deep down inside of me, I had hope that I would be able to turn it around and that God would be able to use me and just save me. And he did. I stand on Jeremiah 29:11-14. God has a hope for me. He has a future. And my faith is in that hope that he has in me. My faith is in him, that his son that died on the cross for me. I know I took a long time to answer that question.
No, and that is a terrific answer. And it's crazy because you've told me that story before. And those that are listening, sometimes you don't realize of the impact of a situation or a circumstance until it is long gone. The episode that we just did before this, Shawn, it was accountability. And it's funny that you immediately brought up that accountable moment that you and I had in that hallway. And really what it did is, you're exactly right. It started watering the plant and the seed of you to say, look, I have hope and faith of who I am. I need a little direction, but I have built a support system around me that's holding me accountable. And when I recognize that I'm going off canter a little bit, it's their job to bring me back to center. And I got to tell you, I'll raise my hand right now. This is my first year coaching 7U travel baseball in Central Ohio. And let me just tell you right now, I've got to have some accountability on that, because some of these coaches, they like to test their patience and just get away with little things and send kids when they shouldn't be sent, and then yell at me for sending kids. And Shawn, just how we were in that basketball game, things tend to get heated. And now I'm finding myself all over again after you explain that to me, to say, look, Johnny, you got to be accountable for yourself here, but I've got to hold my coaches accountable so they don't get kicked out of games and make a scene and everything else. So that was an excellent start to the show. And I'm really glad that you brought that topic up in that situation, because what a lot of people do today is they're afraid to hold people accountable, and they're afraid to say something because of hurting feelings or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, that's what made your bond and I's special, is right. We did hold each other accountable.
Yeah, we lack accountability. You can tell where this conversation could go if we wanted it to go, and I do not, because I'm sick and tired of politics. But the bottom line is there's a lack of accountability. I also think there's sometimes a lack of culpability, and I think we need to look at both of those things. You look at the situations with the police in our country. Mm-hmm. We need to have accountability. There has to be accountability for every police officer in the United States. But I also think that we have to realize there has to be accountability on the other side too. With someone that might be resisting arrest or something like that, there has to be accountability there. And a lot of times, not a lot of times, but you can put yourself in a situation where you're culpable for what happens to you. I don't want to get into that. I will just say this. When you look at the situation right now when it comes to the police on average, this is FBI data supported with the Washington Post that they started keeping track of this in 2015. We average about 10 million arrests a year. 10 million arrests. We average about 1,000 shootings by police officers. Now do the math on that. I don't want there to be one, but in any society where human nature, a sinful nature, evil is pervasive, you're going to have situations. I think what bothers me is that narrative is never shown. 10 million arrests a year, about 1,000 shootings. Right. On that, the 1,000 shootings, overwhelmingly, the victim has a weapon, Right. And that's not talked about. So I think there's accountability from the media, accountability, obviously, from the police, but I also think there's accountability for the person that has put themselves in that situation too.
I couldn't agree more with you on that as well. And not to get down that political rabbit hole as we both have discussed, but to discuss kind of your successes and where you are now. And the definition of hope is really to cherish a desire with anticipation, right? To want something to happen to be true. Now, I believe that hope and faith kind of are synonymous. They're parallel together, right? When it comes to hope, let me ask you this. What do you desire with anticipation, or how do you strive to reach that destination in your daily living? So what are you trying to achieve, and what's some things that you do to get there?
Well, the bottom line is hope and faith are married. Okay. They are a couple. And what do I try to do to get there every day? You said being successful. One of the things I think we have to define what success is. Are we talking about success by what the world standards? Having a well-paying job, owning 2 cars, kids go to college, you have a beautiful house. Those are all nice things, but does that constitute success? I think when you have a faith in Jesus Christ, success is being like David, a man after God's own heart. I think that is what you want to strive for. I'm good friends with James Clear. James Clear wrote the book Atomic Habits on the New York Times bestsellers list, and he talks about getting 1% better. I think that is each day you get 1% better. I think that's what you try to do spiritually. Okay. We all have free will to do what we want to do. And if you know anything about free will, it is pretty evident that we usually move towards our most dominant thought. Right. We move towards our whatever is the most pleasing to us at that moment is what we decide to do.
Absolutely.
That tells me what I need to do is every day I have to be diligent of renewing my mind every single day. What I listen to, what I read, what I watch, who I hang around with. Am I great at it? No, but I do know if I can move more where God's word is more in my life, the people in my life are building me up and not tearing me down, holding me accountable, but not tearing me down. Right. If I can be in more positive situations, I think I have better outcomes and a better opportunity to make really good decisions. Because success, I don't need to tell you this, Johnny, success is compound interest, right?
Right.
Every decision I make, if it's a good one, it will compound. Same way with bad decisions. And I spent about 13 years of my life making some really poor decisions. I'll end with this. My dad said one time I came back from Florida, living not in a very good neighborhood. Actually, it was not good at all. My friend who's a periodontist who lives a totally different life than I did then and I do now. He lives in Palm Beach. And every time I go there, I used to live in Jupiter. And every time I go there, my mom said to my dad, every time Shawn comes home, he just seems a little bit depressed. Like, I think he wishes he had his old life. He lived in Florida. And my dad, when my mom reiterated this to me weeks afterwards, I was not happy about it. But it's really one of the best things he said. He goes, Chris, when Shawn wants more, he'll have more. You know what? When you think about that, that's not what I wanted to hear at that time. But when I reflect on it, that is the truest, best thing that could have been said to me or about me. When you want more, when you want better, then you'll do it to get those things. And I had to want it.
Yeah. And I think that rings true with what you have put on the website, on the next website. And there's three words that I think what you just said define exactly how you leverage that for your own elements of success. And it's purpose, passion, and perspective. I think those three words, maybe you haven't realized it, but what your family had taught you over the years to now, you can now see how you've defined your purpose, you've discovered your passion, and you do a very good job of holding a perspective of here I am now, and this is what I need to do to get there. And what I find truly incredible, and you may not realize it, is you have taken your journey and found your elements of success in those three, along with hope and faith. And now you are teaching those to very young, impressionable people today through the love and the game of basketball. I don't know if you've realized that yet up until this day, but you live with purpose, passion, and perspective. And to really have a focus on a nonprofit organization that's how they're representing their community, you have to live by those. And it's easy to see that you do.
Everyone thinks that I started because I love basketball. I do, but it's even the verbiage is on our website. Basketball is just the shiny bait. I feel like my responsibility is much more than that. It's funny. Somebody asked me about, you're really passionate about Next. How did Next grow to what it has? And it hasn't grown. We're not as big as other AAU programs. I don't even look at us as an AAU program. We're a foundation, but I don't have the time. I'm one person, and I'm not worried about being big. I'm not worried about it. But I did tell someone, I said it takes passion, but you got to be crazy. There's going to be a little element of craziness, okay, in your passion. I've been crazy about Next. I think your perspective, you have to be a little bit delusional.
Right.
If you look at my sign that I hold up on one of the pictures on our website, I talk about I want to change youth sports. That's pretty delusional, okay? But I think you don't realize you're being delusional. You don't realize that you're being crazy when you're doing something that you love and you want to make a difference with. You don't.
Right.
But I think there is a little bit of element of both of those two. But yes, you have to have passion. And obviously I'm having fun here about being crazy. You have to have perspective. Maybe you do have to be just delusional enough to think that you can make a difference. And then you have to be persistent.
Final thoughts here, and I'll propose this question to you, but you said something that I feel is very important for some listeners to hear. Success starts out as passion, okay? When you are starting in and down a road to become successful, whether it's building a business, a nonprofit, a basketball league, an organization, whatever it is, there is passion. People love passion. Oh, you're passionate about that organization. Oh, Shawn, you're passionate about basketball. You're passionate about helping these kids. True success doesn't happen until it is an obsession. But people don't like obsession. You are spending way too much time doing that. You are obsessed with trying to make this team better, these kids better. You are obsessed with trying to make this company better. You are spending way too much time with what started out as a passion. But there is an evolution from passion to obsession, and the obsession part is what makes you successful. I want people to understand that. Shawn, as you are kind of closing us out here, a final thought would be, if there's a young person listening today to this podcast, or maybe a parent of a young person who loves basketball or loves sports in general, what are some things you would tell them and some next steps to help them find their elements of success?
Well, I think if we're just talking about in the area of youth sports, you have to talk about parents first. And I would say, parents, please just get out of the way. Please just take your kids to practice. Go watch them in the games. Get out of the way. Don't make it about you. Don't make their success about you. Don't make it like you. So when you go play golf with your buddies, you can say how good your son or daughter is. Make it about them. Don't make it about you. It's something I have to remind myself every day. I have two kids who are going to play high school basketball. I want to play college football. I want to play college baseball. It is very seductive, and it is very easy to get caught up into wearing your kid's letter jacket, if you will, when you're out in public. I really try to work hard not to do that. I failed, but I really work hard at doing that. Now, I'm lucky because I coach. So I have a different perspective. I'm the 8th grade coach at Liberty Middle School. So I have a different perspective, not just coaching at Next. I would just tell parents, get out of the way and let your kids be who they're going to be on that baseball diamond, football field, soccer field, basketball court, volleyball court. Let them figure out who they're going to be. To kids, I'm just going to tell you this right now. If you're not willing to work, please do not worry about your playing time. Right. Don't even give it a consideration.
Right.
Okay?
Absolutely.
If you're looking for everyone to play the same amount of time, then I would tell you to quit playing sports, because the best kids should play. I'm all for development. 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, they should be playing equal time. I get that. It's about development. But once we get to junior high, high school, best kids play, period. Irrespective of what your last name is on the back of your jersey, best kids play. And it should be that way. We should want it that way.
Right.
But if you're looking for equality when it comes to playing time, then you're doing the wrong thing. I'm never going to change my mind on that.
I agree completely. Eric, I know you heard Shawn's story, and we went through kind of a journey of hope and faith and passion and perspective and purpose and everything under the sun. What's some closing final thoughts that you might have, or questions that you may have for Shawn?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm just so blessed to be a part of this sitting here. First of all, meeting you, Shawn. Thank you so much for being on the show. I love the message, right? And I like that you're speaking straight to the audience. That last bit specifically, a lot of people don't want to say that out loud, right? They don't want to say, hey, listen, let the kids play, parents get out of the way. I've seen it time and time again. I helped to coach my son's team for about 8 years, and it was great. But there was a point where I wasn't going to be able to cut it as the coach any longer. Mm-hmm. He needed to go to that next level, and we were no longer a team past that point. I had to realize that was kind of a hard thing, kind of an ego, but I'm not a pro ball player, and I haven't coached anything besides the younger kids for years and years. It's something that everybody needed to hear. So I appreciate just the truth and the honesty and what you brought to the table today, for sure.
I appreciate that. Youth and sports are not killing youth sports. Parents are.
Yeah.
Right.
Parents are killing.
Right.
Sports.
Absolutely.
It's awful. And like I said, I opened up the show. I told you some of the things I did as a coach that I hope I never, ever, ever do again.
Right.
I hope I never behave a certain way in the stands with my kids playing. But youth sports, parents are killing it.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, again, thank you so much, Shawn. Appreciate it. Johnny, awesome as always. You always bring on the best guests. And of course, our last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to the Elements of Success podcast with Johnny Dawson. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Johnny comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at the Elements of Success, this is Eric Johnson reminding you that our hope is that these podcasts bring you inspiration and motivation for your faith journey. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Elements of Success podcast. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, please click the subscribe button below. If you know anyone who would benefit from listening to this podcast, click the share button.